when it comes to FaZe's performance in this group, to be fair, I'll be the first to say, gotta call a spade a spade. I had them top in the group, or at least getting close to the top of the group. I really had a lot of faith in this project. Now, obviously, hindsight being 2020, yada yada. In retrospect, you can kind of look back and say, well, the signs were there that maybe this was going to take a little bit more time. And the reason why I say that is because Karrigan did that HLTV confirmed interview recently, and kind of laid out the groundwork for his plan for this roster. And it sounded very ambitious. It sounded like there was a lot that he wanted to get done, that it would take a bit of time, and that systematically he wanted to change a few things in the roster in terms of how players played, how they communicated, right? What was the system for any given situation? He wanted to start getting, for 4v5s or 5v4s on any given map, right? You got a 2-man advantage. What do you do? You got 3 guys on upper site nuke, but the bomb gets planted B. What do you do? These sorts of things that you're just working out systematically through prac and scrim and, just time essentially. They take time. It takes time to figure all that stuff out. And so it sounded like, at least what Karrigan was telling us on that podcast, it sounded like Karrigan had a lot in store for FaZe, and that Roban was going to be involved as well. And so Roban was going to be a bit more hands-on that coach role and getting into the mix a bit. And so that spoke to me that, okay, there was going to be a lot of work done on this FaZe roster. Sure, this is what I've been saying all along. I was really happy with what Cold was saying in interviews, that Cold was making it clear that Karrigan was going to be like the answer in terms of the in-game leadership part of it, and that everybody else was going to get their roles, and so they would all get to work together and be happy, and there would be a frictionless sort of scenario where nobody's going to be rubbing everybody the wrong way. Everybody's going to have their roles that they want, and they can just focus on improving in the game. Fantastic. Already you're kind of setting the groundwork for the good results there. Now with Karrigan and Roban, wanting to come in and really make some big changes, it seems it's going to take time. And to be fair, they got put in the group of death. This is the slaughterfest of a group, and we called it even before going into this group that this group was going to be a bloodbath. Mouse Sports, nobody really expected much from Mouse Sports, to be fair. They have looked like they've been getting better and better as the group progresses, and so good on them. But coming into it, you've got FaZe Clan, and they're going up against G2, they're going up against NIP, Vitality, and then even ENCE are turning up into this monster team, and they were kind of laying in the cut, snake in the grass, weren't too sure what kind of level to expect from them. But even just G2 and Vitality and NIP, those were going to be tough teams to go up against right out the gates. And so this was right from the beginning, called as the group of death. Like, it was going to be so difficult. Unfortunately, no FaZe. I guess they just don't know anybody high enough up at ESL to get put into Group D or something like that. Group C, get a little bit more time to practice, get a little bit more time to work. I mean, they have to move to North America, I guess, and then they'll have the benefit of being able to fly back and forth, and, geography will help them out a little bit, or maybe they need to be in, like, South America or whatever. But, unfortunately, they're European-based now. So, you know what? Get in the server, boys. You don't have time to practice. You got to get into it right away. And so this really sucks, I think, in terms of just timing for FaZe, because given even just 1, maybe even 2 weeks, if they were in Group D, if they had just an extra 10 days of prac, right? Think of how that could have perhaps changed this FaZe roster. If they could have had just a little bit more time to work, a little bit more time to get some scrims in, it could have been sick. But it turns out that that's not what happened for FaZe this time around, and they've struggled. They've had a couple games go against them. They've had a couple games play competitive, right? I mean, out the gates, they were competitive against Vitality, but then we've also seen, Vitality, they were probably the weakest of the big 3 going into this because of all these roster changes that they've been making, and that it's been looking a little dicey, right? A little dicey for Vitality going into this group. So I didn't expect Vitality to top it. I expected Vitality to struggle, and that's pretty much exactly how it's playing out for them. So FaZe, them looking good against Vitality, still losing to Vitality, already you're kind of going, how is this going to go? They get the expected win over Mouse Sports. Fair enough. That's what everybody expects. But then they fall to my boys NIP. I mean, everybody's going to be falling to NIP these days, so no shame in that. And losing to G2, I think that's the painful one, right? Because Nico yesterday himself, he was saying, it feels pretty good. It feels pretty good to beat my old team. And for the rest of FaZe, probably feels pretty bad to get beaten by Nico, especially considering a little bit of the drama that was going on when the roster change happened. That was probably playing in their heads. You're having a little bit of a twist liquid kind of situation here where maybe it's getting into the mind games and players are messing with each other. But for FaZe to lose 2-0 to G2, and especially on Inferno 16-13, it feels like that one could have gone either way. Nuke was a little bit of a tough one, but Inferno felt like it could have gone either way. That's a painful loss. So that's them out. Regardless of what happens now, they get to play upset for ENCE essentially. If they can put a halt to this ENCE pain train and put ENCE, at risk of dropping out of the top 3, things are going to get a little bit nasty perhaps. But the fact that it doesn't pan out that way, or if it doesn't pan out that way, I mean, FaZe, if they lose to ENCE, whatever at this point, because they're out of the running for the playoffs. And so as far as FaZe are concerned, their campaign is over. This is it for EPL, but we get to go back to them trying to practice and actually just put the work in. So they'll have a lot of information to go off of here, which is nice because officials are different from scrims. And Karrigan himself was talking about how it is a little bit different now in this online era to get your head in the correct space because you're always in the same room. I actually really liked that. He was even noting that he would unplug his mouse, right? Unplug his mouse and keyboard on a game day, on an official day. And so when he would come into the room, he would have to plug in his mouse, plug in his keyboard like he would do it in official, set everything up like he would do it in an official if he was on LAN, and then that would help get him into that frame of mind where it's like, this is LAN and it's now time to go. And so, tough break for FaZe and how they and how it went for him. It's not been the smoothest start, but it shows promise because what I really liked was B-Mass in particular. He looked like it was, or not B-Mass, what am I talking about? Brokey. It's the Bs, I'm always like, Bs, Brokey, B-Mass. But whatever, the young guns, right? But Brokey on FaZe, he actually had some decent maps, and I thought that was pretty cool. That was pretty promising. So throughout the EPL, you can see, he's almost always in the green now. He's almost always in the green. And this was one of the major things that was kind of working against FaZe, and he was getting criticized a lot, taking a bit of flack, is, the AWPer, it's such an important role now, and on FaZe, you really need that guy to come through. Well, as it happens, it looks like he may be actually starting to get a little bit into his comfort zone, right? So it's very cool to see that Karrigan, maybe he's had just enough time to start getting Brokey comfortable with his role as the op, start getting him into positions where he can be effective, and we can start to see the others come into the machine as well. Because I think coldzera also, Cold kind of a little bit more hit or miss. I saw some strong performances from him, but also some weak ones, and so it's not exactly super clean. And yeah, you can see right here, a lot of red in the column for Cold. So different from B-Mass, but this is, again, also I want to say kind of expected, right? Just because since time immemorial, it's always been a little bit of a struggle for a player to go from being a player to being the IGL and then back to the player again. And that does seem to take a toll on players, and it does seem to impact their game. And so you're seeing it a little bit now with Megas, it feels like. Now that Glaive is back into it, he's having to try and adjust and figure out what it is that he needs to do. He's kind of lost that killer instinct. Stewie on Liquid, same sort of scenario. These are just fresh examples right off the top of our heads. But coldzera right now, he may be having to adjust a little bit, trying to figure out where he fits in. He had a strong Inferno. He had a strong Inferno against G2, and so, you were starting to feel a little bit, but then, yeah, you can see that the nuke wasn't there for him at all. He was really struggling on that one against G2, and, well, it was a little bit of a hit-or-miss event for him. So hopefully, there will be some focus on getting coldzera, up to snuff, because I think he is going to be one of the key factors here for FaZe Clan. Key factors for FaZe Clan going forward is they need that firepower, and they need Marcello, they need Cold to come back online and to start, clicking heads, because that's what he's capable of. And, if he plays like a secondary caller role or something along those lines, fine. Certain situations, right? He's on one side, Karrigan's on the other. Okay, then. But the majority of the time, he should be focusing on his crosshair and focusing on clicking heads. And I think that's why he's on this roster. So this is going to be key going forward, as we need to start to see these numbers go from red to black for Cold. We need to start seeing these numbers flip and see that performance coming in from Cold. But if that starts to happen, right, and it's going to be a little bit before we get to see these guys play again, at least a couple weeks, so they've got time to prac. If they come into the next event and Cold starts popping off and it starts looking good, Brokey maintains this form, and we start looking, I think FaZe at that point start to become a real threat, and we start to see that machine that we've been talking about come online. Because right from the beginning, I was very focused on Cold. I was very focused on FaZe. I thought that they had what it was necessary. I liked a lot what Cold was saying in interviews. Sounded all very promising. And so now will be the time for these teams, for this team to kind of gel and over the next few weeks put in that work and impress us all at the next event.